Munich.
What?
Guy without his balls. From Munich.
Munich is a city in Germany. München, Munich. Yeah.
Right.
Boom.
The buddy detective film. A brilliant mix of mystery, action, and comedy, with a mismatched duo at the centre of it all. You've probably seen many films like this one in your life before. So how is my FMP going to respect the tropes and cliches of the subgenre, but also introduce something new? Well, I'll tell you. But first, let's go make a brew. I'm Sam Cooper, writer and co-director of my upcoming FMP film, Brew Ha Ha. With my partner in crime and cinematographer Brad Holman, we plan to bring more of a British take to the buddy detective subgenre, involving that quintessential British thing, tea. So already, we've got more of a British demographic in mind for our target audience. But with the style of the film we're going for, it would mainly aim for a 20 to 30 age range demographic. Speaking of tea, that tasted a bit different. Our two heroes, detectives Thomas Ward and Scott Saunders, were the best rookie detectives around, solving every case quickly and efficiently across the country. However, when Brew Ha Ha takes place, they've seemingly hit a collective bump in their careers, messing up every case, including an integral drugs investigation. As you can probably tell, their boss, the chief, is not too pleased with this, so takes them off the investigation. Naturally, they're only then given small crimes to solve, but little do they know their next yet seemingly so insignificant investigation will lead them right back to where they began, and they'll solve how these drugs were being smuggled in the first place, through tea. Speaking of which, this really is good tea. Writing this story has very much been influenced by films from Shane Black, such as his Lethal Weapon series and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and Edgar Wright's Hot Fuzz and Baby Driver. One interesting element for me is that most buddy detective films pair up two completely opposing characters who have to learn to work together. But I've instead written the characters so that they've known each other for a long time and riff off each other as friends would. Peter Hyams' Running Scared has been a very useful research film, as this is one of the few buddy detective films that does this also.
I'm the one who made him swerve.
Oh, you made him sweat.
Yes,
You
sir.
always aim low anyway.
After talking to my FMP chief, Rob Ferrin, on this idea and having submitted a first draft, he was fully on board with it and suggested the next main task was to look at locations and casting. Casting was relatively simple, as I set up a casting call page on Mandy and waited for responses, of which there have been many. The location situation, however, has been a different case entirely. Taking Chief Ferrin's advice of getting into contact with Film Hampshire, I sent an application to look at an industrial warehouse for both the opening and closing sequences to Brew Ha Ha. Although the reply was quick, it wasn't the best news I could have hoped for. The Film Hampshire representative responded by saying the location I was applying for would most likely require a charge of £750, which I already knew would take too much out of a proposed budget of £1,000. I replied back with this information, so the representative came back with further options. Again, after investigation, the best location was also too expensive, and 2 other locations required a whole new form that needed to be sent to Portsmouth Council. I reported back to Chief Ferrin with this complicated situation. He suggested that it may be possible to cut out the middleman and find the direct owners of the property. He suggested an even further, more useful idea. Ringwood and Red Cat Brewery. Whilst Ringwood may be a little more difficult to get a hold of, Red Cat Brewery, a small yet Winchester-based facility that might work for the opening and closing scenes of Brew Ha Ha, could be suitable. Whilst it is a functioning brewery, it does offer tours of the facility to the public. Chief Ferrin suggested that myself and Brad Holman take one of these tours to check out the location and to suggest to the business owners the possibility of filming there. We plan to do this soon, and if it comes to it, bribe the owners with the possibility of making an advert for them. Hey, that's pretty much good cop and bad cop rolled into one. To get an idea of how the opening will play out, we shot some test footage for it. Take a look.
Are you at the head table yet? Come in. Answer me, Ward.
Stop the car!
Bollocks.
Drive!
What the hell, Saunders?
What? You weren't responding.
I was with the heads, I couldn't say a thing.
You should have announced radio silence before you even got in the room.
I didn't think of that, did I?
I just wanted a quick update is all.
Here's an update, we've blown it. Now we'll never know how and where they're moving the drugs.
The chief won't be happy about this.
Throughout filming, I will mainly be in charge of sound design, and then in post-production, I will be in charge of editing. This test footage of the opening demonstrates some of those elements. I find the sound effects recorded on site work really well when the car starts, so I will most likely replicate this again for the real shoot.
Answer me, Ward.
The editing pace I would also like to keep the same as well, since I find the slower pace from Saunders' point of view ramping up in speed to when they need to get away works quite well. The influence here for when the car starts up is very much in an Edgar Wright style, which again I find is great for this specific moment. The intercutting between characters' dialogue will most likely stay the same. Looking back at it now, I already know I want to record dialogue separate from in camera, as I can set up sound equipment within the car or through wireless mics to pick up the characters' voices a little better. I definitely feel I need to work on green screen effects a little more though, as this test footage does seem fairly rough and not as polished as it could be. Related to the opening sequence, another small but quite crucial detail has been the car the detectives drive. In order to honour and reference the great buddy detective films that influenced Brew Ha Ha, Chief Ferrin suggested we find an iconic classic car for the detectives to drive. Although it would only appear in the opening and a few exterior shots, we both agreed with Chief Ferrin that it would add just that extra brilliant bit of detail to the whole film overall. After investigating this idea, I found that most classic car hire firms were completely out of our budget range, so I turned to the next best alternative: my dad. You see, my dad has many connections, many of which own classic cars, such as the Ford Escort RS 2000 and the original Audi Quattro. He said that his connections would be happy to help, but the problem is the filming itself. You see, the owners of the cars would be happy to help, but obviously the actors would not be allowed to drive the car. This is a problem, and this is why the opening test footage has been so useful, as we can use exterior shots of the car racing away, and the interior exchange between characters with the use of green screen, much like we have in the test footage. Here's another example of how I would like things to play out for the real shoot. Here we have David, a potential actor for either detective roles, reading a scene that takes place just after the detectives get taken off their main case and the morning after. Again, when filming these scenes, I would definitely like to record audio separate from in camera, using the Zoom H6, and build the atmosphere of the setting with the background office noise, as you can hear right now. Also, although this test footage is intercut between both characters, I would ideally like to try and have these scenes composed so that both characters are on the screen at the same time, directly interacting with each other, and that the editing takes a slightly slower pace here in comparison to the opening and the Chief's office scenes.
Would you?
No, you're right, I wouldn't. Wanna go get drunk? Thought you'd never ask. I think we overdid it last night. Huh? I said, I think we... balls to it.
Hey, Dix.
What the hell did you just call us?
You know, like Detective Dick Tracy.
Still a bit rude.
You've got a break-in to deal with.
We don't deal with small crimes.
You do now. Chief's orders.
Give me that. Hey, Saunders, look at this. Chief's still being a bit petty with this one. Still, wouldn't have to talk to this, Mrs. Riggs about it. So we've got nothing better to do.
So there we have it. Brew Ha Ha is coming along rather well. There are definite improvements and things to be addressed for the real shoot though. In the meantime, over the Christmas holidays, I plan to address the casting situation as we have plenty of candidates to look over and approve. Locations as well will be addressed, as myself and Brad plan to go on one of the brewery tours for the warehouse location very soon. For now though, I think it's time to sit back, relax, stick the kettle on, and have another brew. Thank you for watching my presentation.
Good morning, sir.
Tell me, what day is it?
What day?
Goddamn Christmas!